Hi, my name is Mark Bünger. I'm a research director here at Lux Research, and I'm sitting with Maryann McNally, who's the Vice President of Innovation at Illinois Toolworks. And we were just talking, so you just changed from VP of R&D to VP of Innovation. Can you tell a little bit about what was the rationale behind that?
So we did a strategic look at what's happening in our company, and previously we had been a technology center, and we were responsible for supporting our businesses in a lot of different tech areas that they may not have had within their smaller businesses. ITW has gone through a transformation in the last couple of years where we've gone from 800 plus smaller businesses to a scale of 89 divisions. So now you're talking about a $20 million business that may not have a chemist to a $150 million division that certainly has a chemist as part of their engineering organization. Okay. So for us, it was a rethink around, I don't necessarily need to still support the technical needs, but I do need to support at a higher level what's going on innovation-wise. So we've pivoted to be more around process, best practices, things of that nature, collaboration between the different business units, as well as looking at more enterprise-level things like additive, smart connected machines, are some of the areas that we're looking at. They affect a lot more of our organization than just one division.
Yeah. So 800 companies, even to 89 is a pretty big number. How does that affect just things like process? I mean, innovation process, herding 89 cats is still pretty hard.
It is. And we're also very decentralized. So it's never a top-down approach. So what we've created in the last year or so has been a compilation of best practices and a framework. So we're saying here's what the definition is for what we call customer-backed innovation, and that's solving customer problems. It's a framework. It's what you do as you move through from discovering what the pain point of your customer is out to deploying the solution. How you do it and the step-by-step process is up to each division and what makes sense in their markets and with their products.
Yeah. So do you have any metrics, or do you actually measure the organizations on that, or try and get them to share best practices, or how do you
Yeah, that's a really great question. And we've rolled out the framework this year, and we're talking about, so now what do we do as far as measurement? So we're talking innovation vitality indices, revenue of new products versus total revenue, so things of that nature we're trying to do. And again, it's a framework. It's what we really need to know at corporate to see that we're doing organic growth across the company. There's a lot of metrics and a lot of information being collected at the divisions, what's right for them. We take a look at what's happening and what they're collecting, what's working, and try to share that across the organization. And if a division sees that, hey, they're doing a really good job at weeding out, let's say, some innovations where the value proposition's not there, then they may apply that. We don't mandate it, but we certainly encourage then the use of best practices. And quite clearly, if somebody sees something's working, it's almost like a natural flow in our organization. Culturally, it just is the way we do things.
Okay. Well, so do you find when you're looking at all these groups, what are some things that are really replicable that you can take from one organization and translate to another? And what are some things that are just like, it was just a good leader, or just a really lucky day in the lab, or good insight? Can you distinguish between those two?
Oh, that's a really good question.
Sorry.
I think if I give it some thought here, I think probably the easiest thing for us to translate from division to division is a cadence and a structure around their stage gate process. It's about saying what doing what you say, and instilling that type of a review process and a challenging mentality. What I think doesn't translate is every single customer market's unique. So the way that you approach it, the way that you work in that space is different, and probably should be.
Yeah. So one of the things that a lot of organizations struggle with is external innovation. So maker movement, universities, lead customers. How do you manage to get the outside ideas incorporated into what your teams do?
So I talk again about our decentralization. Our divisions do a lot of stuff on their own. What we have tried to establish at a more centralized look is a knowledge network. So we partner with an MIT or other local universities around the area, or universities that are already affiliated with some of our divisions, to understand what's going on in their small spin-offs, and try to see whether or not any of those ideas or any of those technologies are applicable to any of the problems that our divisions are working on to solve customer problems. And if we can bring that connection to light, that's what we're trying to do as far as bringing the outside in.
Yeah.
You know, we're interested in additive, and we're interested in 3D printing. Clearly, it's a manufacturing process, and we're looking at it and saying, okay, GE's making big investments, so other people are looking at this as well. A lot of our companies, we do a lot of things where we outsource. We'll design the product, but we'll outsource the creation of that, and then we'll assemble and ship it and stuff. And so in that instance, we're looking at things of, okay, how do we create a design mentality that can take advantage of the things that open up in design when you use 3D printing. For the parts of our organization that actually make components, 3D printing right now is probably not fast enough for us with the volumes that we do. So it's more about prototyping and the ability to change those designs quickly, as well as tooling. And so those are the areas that we look at to bring in outside ideas and things of that nature. You know, when you talk about maker movement, the first thing I think about is open source designs and the ability to do that. And there, the question is, again, if it's a critical component, like an airbag piece, we bring in an open source design. I'm not sure the regulations and the liabilities are all clear yet as to who would be responsible if that part fails. And so we're a little bit cautious about bringing things like that in.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, because you know, I would say most people in the security, if you just look at software, most people that are in security and that part of the IT business would say that open source is vastly preferable to closed source things, because it is, you know, the fact that so many eyes are on it, you're going to find those types of mistakes more quickly. And again, if you look at how they've done in the marketplace, that's been the case. So it's pretty interesting to think about a mission critical or life saving technology, and if it was proprietary versus open source. I mean, a lot of people look at that in hardware as more of a IP question. And I hear a lot of people say, well, no, we want to make money on this, we don't want it to be open source. And like as if those were mutually exclusive. So do you see the hardware manufacturing, even construction and building, those types of industries that your products go into, do you see them adopting more of an open source mentality anytime soon? Or do they need some kind of an example to make that clearer for them?
I think you're right. I think they need an example. I think if you're in the building industry and you're part of making a roof, there are certain regulations and rules, and even the software that we use has to be certified to make sure that when you've designed all the trusses and all the structures around a roof, it can withstand the wind loading that it requires. So if we were to go away from that or try to use something that, let's say, is not certified, I would say there's probably a lot of pushback to make sure that we would not get into a liability issue. So again, having someone before us do it and giving us the example that this is what would happen if there's an issue or a problem would probably be the way we would go.
Yeah, going back to this relationship with external organizations and especially around additive manufacturing. So that's an area where every time you look at it, even every time we look at it, it's changing. And we spend all our day. People that's all they do. So so it must be hard in an organization, even one that really is being innovative and moving quickly. For a big organization, it still must be like very transient and very fast. And how do you build a strategy around something like that?
Right now, we're more in observe and take a look at what's happening, because it is changing so quickly. And some of that also is hype. You get a lot of press around, here's a revolutionary type of thing that's going on. And when you expose it and peel the onion away, you're like, okay, it's great, it's moving forward, still not where we want it to be. We can't see how we're going to incorporate that. And so right now it's kind of a wait and see attitude. Is relying on Lux to bring us more information. It's being a part of America Makes, which is the Youngstown, Ohio additive manufacturing center
Mhm.
of excellence, let's say, that's being funded by the government, and looking at the projects that they're doing and
Mhm.
whether or not they relate, whether or not some of the breakthroughs or ideas that they have we can incorporate or start looking at incorporating.
Yeah.
So right now we have, I think, more of a wait and see attitude
Mhm.
because, again, things are changing so quickly.
Mhm.
New processes, well, not necessarily new processes, but let's say new machines are coming online, cheaper machines are coming online, more materials are getting certified for 3D printing. At this point, it's really just taking a look at that, experimenting and seeing what's coming.
Yeah. So we were talking earlier about women in science and engineering, and you are in a very leading role in a very male-dominated industry and in R&D. So are the things that you think about with regard to not just girls who are still in school, but women in your organization or women that might be in another organization that are not working in science and technology, but that you could bring in? Is there anything, broadly that makes sense there?
So we, as we all talk about, diversity is the key to innovation. So we are really hard at work to try to see how we bring more diversity, both into the company, into the fields of engineering and science, and it's a challenge. And the challenge for girls, we all know, is kind of in middle school.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really how do we approach that area. We work in our local universities to try to promote and provide internships to get people exposed into manufacturing, because it's also it's a diversity issue, and I think it's also a millennial issue for manufacturing, is to bring people in at a younger age to really bring those next generation of ideas into manufacturing.
Yeah.
And so that impetus is a diversity of age, it's a diversity of gender. It's a diversity in total that we're trying to bring in, and we're working across a lot of different organizations and universities and schools, and trying to come up with plans and internships to try to give people exposure to what we do, exposure to some of the innovative things that we do in manufacturing, and that it's just as cool as working at Google.
Yeah. Well, I think the last probably 20 years or so, we've seen a lot of shop classes get phased out of schools and kind of replaced by other things, so people don't get exposed to those skills at an early age.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I remember my middle school shop classes were a lot of the some of the most fun, but you also learned a lot. And it's, spatial reasoning and things like that.
And you're thinking community colleges. Can we have the trade school type of things and stuff like that? I mean, welding, we are desperate to find, the industries are desperate to find welders, and it's a nice, good paying job, but it's not viewed as that, and there aren't a lot of training facilities for that. So we have to kind of get back to, if manufacturing is really going to continue to grow in the company, there are certain opportunities to both get people to come back into manufacturing, as well as bring people in to take manufacturing to that next step. That's more digital, that's more around additive, that's more around voice rec and cameras.
Yeah. Well, so if let's just, for the sake of argument, let's say that doesn't work out. Robotics or automatic, there are other ways to solve the problem.
The dark factory, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The dark factory. There's no heat, there's no light, because it's just a robot, right?
Yeah.
And a bunch of 3D printers, and then a robot that takes the finished product, boxes it up, and puts it on the autonomous truck that drives it to the next location.
Do you have any either personal preference or say strategic, strong view that one of the other of those scenarios needs to play out?
I think it's a blend. I'm never going to tell you. I'm always going to compromise. So I'll tell you. I think it's a combination of getting more and more robotics and smart machines and connected machines to do more of that work. I think there's always going to be some human element involved in there. But maybe it's a totally different skill set that we need in the factories, and maybe it's distributed manufacturing as opposed to one large facility. So there's a lot of different pieces in play.
Yeah.
It seems like we're in a really dynamic period. Across the board, automotive. There's so many different pieces moving around with this, disruptive technologies and changes in a whole different ecosystem. I think manufacturing is encountering that same different thing, right?
Yeah, it does. I have to say, there's a little bit of a Silicon Valley in the late '90s feel to manufacturing right now, where it feels like this is really a unique boom time.
Right.
This isn't just
Right.
The aftermath of the recession or something. This is a
Right.
really unique time in history when
Yeah.
there's personal leaders, there's new technologies coming
Yeah.
in, and really
I
looking.
mean,
at
you're
it
doing
from that.
additive, you're doing digitization,
Mhm.
and you can totally disrupt the supply chain. I can
Yeah.
see a local center that supplies a significant amount of the things that my community needs, right? It's just like local farming, local manufacturing could be kind
Yeah.
of the wave of the future, and that solves a lot of transportation problems and environmental problems. So
Yeah.
it's a fun time.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, well, I'll say thank you very much. Really appreciated talking with you, and thanks for coming
Thank
to the
you.
Lux Executive Summit. And see you again soon.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks.